When one is horrible, it means that there is nothing that is objectively good and progressive that will come out of such individual.
If you have been convicted of an offense before and you have been pardoned, and anybody is trying to bring that up against you and calling you a convict, you have the power to sue that person for defamation.
Justice must not only be done, but it must be seen by all to have been manifestly done.
Every citizen has a right and every citizen has an obligation.
That a plea of atrocious acquit or convict is very different from the plea of pardon.
Trespass is that act that interferes with the peaceful,
no matter how minute,
no matter how minute.
Who comes to equity must come with clean hands. Hello out there, you are welcome to another fresh episode of the program Justifying Nigeria on ACNN television, reaching from Abuja. On today's episode, we are going to be looking at a very important topic of the polity, the legal perspective of the ban of Twitter in Nigeria. My name is Anozechin, I'm so your anchor. Twitter is an American microblogging and social networking services on which users post and interact with messages known as tweets. Registered users can post, like, and retweet tweets, but unregistered users can only read them. It was created by Jack Dorsey, Noah Glass, B. Stone, and Evans Williams in March 2006 and launched in July of the same year. And since then, have been widely used all over the world, including Nigeria. Some weeks ago, President Muhammadu Buhari tweeted about the instability in the southeast. He referred to the 1967-1970 Nigeria Civil War, telling those misbehaving that he would deal with them in the language they will understand. After the president faced a massive backlash from users for making such comments, Twitter deleted the tweets accusing the president of violating its rules. The Nigerian government was very furious and accused Twitter of double standard, and as such, banned the use of Twitter in Nigeria. The question now is, what is the effect of this ban? Does the federal government have the right in law to ban Twitter? Do you think that Twitter had in law to delete the tweets of a whole president of the country? With me in the studio to make sense of all this is Barrister Ikechukwu Nwakama Esquire. He is a legal practitioner based in Abuja, a member of Nigerian Bar Association, a member of Chartered Institute of Arbitrators and Conciliators. You are welcome to the program, sir.
Thank you so much. It's always a pleasure to be here.
Thank you very much. Thanks for coming. The polity, the country is being hit up. And we talk about this Twitter ban by the federal government. But first of all, before we delve decisively to our discussion, what is your general assessment on this ban of Twitter in Nigeria? Your general assessment before we look at the aspects of law that pertains to that.
All right. Thank you so much. You will agree with me that the issue concerning Twitter ban has been a very controversial issue in the country. And you understand why it's controversial because of the level of user and the type of persons that uses Twitter. The day I heard that Twitter was banned, I think I was in Jos when I was informed that Twitter was banned. I was doing a program. Honestly, I was shocked. And I said to myself, I hope this is not true. Because I wouldn't believe that in a country like Nigeria, where we practice a constitutional democracy, that such an important means of communication will be banned. Of course, they call it ban, but I don't call it ban because you don't ban what you don't have control over. The only thing they did was to restrict people from accessing Twitter, and they effectively did this by, the network providers, instructing them not to allow access. So Twitter is still very much around in Nigeria, but you cannot access it as it is, or as its web. So, to my mind, I consider it as an affront to what we collectively believe should be a constitutional democracy. And when you look at the sequence leading to the ban, it's more saddening. Honestly, I don't want to speak as a politician, which I'm not. I will only restrict myself to the legal issues. But again, facts are very necessary for us to analyze the position of the law. You know, Mr. President, just like your introduction really pointed out, made a conference, made a statement when the INEC officials visited him to make complaint about how their
offices and the sensitive material are being burnt and all over the place.
Exactly. He completely veered off into the 1963
70 within that range.
1967, 1970. And the next thing we heard is that I'm going to, you know, I'm going to treat them in a language they will understand.
But I think it's provocation. Everybody has the right of provocation. You're a lawyer now.
Yes, I'll come to that.
Okay.
I'll come to that.
Because it is right to be angry.
Oh, definitely.
Okay, go
definitely.
ahead.
Now, when that happened, they now carried that statement to Twitter. Twitter is not an official means for government to release statement to the public. So we have to get that right. So you step to the arena of Twitter to tweet things that ordinarily violate their policy. We'll get
that's
to that.
Policy of Twitter now.
But that is not even the major thing, the major area. I'm just looking at the sequence leading to that. In less than 24 hours, there was a statement from the Minister of Information.
Lai Mohammed.
Yes, about the issue. In the next 48 hours or so, Twitter access was restricted in Nigeria. And you could see the speed at which they acted towards this. And it gives me a lot of concern. And every other Nigerian.
Now, to the legal issues now. Does the federal government have the rights in law to ban the use of Twitter? Or maybe use your word to restrict the use of Twitter in Nigeria?
Now, I'll be able to answer this looking at, again, just like I said,
all right,
the sequence that have led to this. The federal government acted in ignorance, and I will tell you why. The tweets of President Muhammad Buhari is a personal tweet from him. And you will understand that as at the time President Buhari created or registered the Twitter account, he wasn't the president.
Yes, the facts are there.
So as at the time he did this, he accepted the terms and conditions
of Twitter.
And those terms and conditions applies to him in person. So we must have to understand that the person of the president is different from the office of the president. That is why the president can come and go, but the office remains.
Because it's a corporate soul.
That is it. So as at the time he tweeted that, you have already violated your contractual obligation with Twitter.
That's personal.
You get the point. So that your personal agreement that you entered before becoming the president binds you. You have violated that policy that said you cannot use this platform to threaten or harass anybody. And you saw what happened. People started petitioning. And at that point, Twitter needed to act in accordance with their terms. Now, what happened was that they now crossed his person of Muhammad Buhari to the office of the president in a constitutional democracy where he doesn't exercise the entire powers of the federal government. He only exercises the executive power. We have the legislative powers, we have the executive powers, and we have the judicial powers. And what happens in constitutional democracy is that your powers are given to you by the constitution. The president is not different from me and you. The only thing that differs him from me and you as Muhammad Buhari is that he enjoys immunity under Section 308, and he enjoys privilege. But when it comes to his office, as the office of the president, your action must be circumscribed by the law.
This is becoming interesting, but you continue on this, please, when we come back from break. Please, viewers, do join us again. Hi, you're welcome to another segment of The Speaker, reaching you from ACNN Television. On today's segment, we are going to be looking at the phrase that says, sweet Nigeria or sad Nigeria. My name is Anoze Chinomso. When the word sweet is being used, it signifies that something that is being referred to is good, pleasurable, and loved. When one refers to another to be sweet, It means that the fellow is passionate to his heart, and all must be done to protect that individual. And that is why people can call their loved ones sweethearts, sweet angel, and so on. On the other hand, sadness is something that no one, I repeat, no one will like to experience, because it comes with bitterness, anger, enmity, acrimony, which sometimes its end is disastrous, unpalatable, and destructive. With the kind of heartbreaking and fearful things happening in Nigeria, I'm moved to ask you, yes, you that is watching and listening to me, on whether we are living in a sweet Nigeria or sad Nigeria. When a retired AIG Chris Dega, the head of security detail to Benue State Governor, was murdered in cold blood, is an example of a sad Nigeria. When Aliyu Wamaku refused to acknowledge the death of 8 innocent children hawking at Kwata Junction in Awka, Anambra States, but eloquently speaking on the floor of Senate about a burnt truck of cows, is also an example of a sad Nigeria. In a situation where the Onion Producers and Marketers Association of Nigeria have threatened to stop the supply of onions down to the south, is a clearer picture of a sad Nigeria. The killing of 14 people in 2 local government areas of Zamfara State by bandits, gunmen killing 1 person and kidnapping 10 others in New Bamali Polytechnic Zaria, Kaduna State, another set of bandits kidnapping 12 people in the same Kaduna State, a police officer shot dead while on duty in Akwa Ibom State, another 12 people killed and many more injured in Plateau State, are all perfect and clear examples of a sad Nigeria. How can it be that Nigeria has suddenly become a den of robbers, bandits, unknown gunmen, and kidnappers? How can it be that Nigeria has suddenly become a place where all sorts of sophisticated ammunitions and weapons could be found, and yet no state, I repeat, no state in Nigeria, including the Federal Capital Territory, manufacture guns? How can it be that Nigeria has suddenly become a country where the conscience of our political leaders is dead? How can it be that our daily newspapers, that's supposed to be a medium of conveying news, has suddenly become obituary almanacs? How can it be that a democratic government has suddenly become a dictatorial system of government? All these can only be in a sad Nigeria. What happened to that love, peace, and harmony that Nigeria once enjoyed as one country? When traveling from one state in the east to another in north or west was a source of adventure. When protection of lives and properties was the utmost priority of the political leaders. When our cultural norms, integration, and diversity was the source of our collective strength and unity. What is it? Why is it? How did we get here? Where did we miss it? Are we children of a lesser God? I think it's high time we began to do some positive reflection and ask certain fundamental questions in order to get it right once again. In order to justify Nigeria, I therefore speak. Until our political leaders begin to change their mindset and have a different view of governance, acknowledging the fact that leadership is only about the people and not privatization of public wealth, and always have in mind that one can only be remembered by the legacies he will leave behind, and therefore endeavor to use whatever privileged position they occupy to impact on people for an effective and positive developmental result, we shall continue to live in a sad Nigeria instead of a sweet Nigeria. My name is Anozie Chinomso. I just want to speak. Hello, esteemed viewers. Glad to know that you are still there, and we are here with Barrister Ikechukwu Wakama. Counsel, sir, before we went for break, we are trying to, separate the office of the president from the person of Muhammadu Buhari.
Yes.
I use our examples and to illustrate that he's the same person like you and I, only that he enjoys immunity and of course privilege. Please take it out from there.
In fact, people will argue differently, but again, I hold my position strongly. That himself as a person, the law says you can't sue him for any civil action or even charge him for any criminal wrong. That is when he's still the president. Now, those things, of course, are only exclusive to him as the president. But does that then mean that him as a person will allow his personal emotions to now determine how the government should be governed in a constitutional democracy? And I say no. We know that, of course, his immunity is there, but you can sue the president of Nigeria because it is an office different from his person. So what we now saw is that they now moved his personal emotions and the breach that have occurred in the interpretation of Twitter to the office of the president, and they acted in the manner they did. And I argue strongly that assuming that tweet was tweeted from the office of the president of Nigeria, it could have been different. But this tweet came from your personal accounts. And that personal account is an account you subscribe, having understood the terms and conditions that should bind you in that particular area. So for me,
they don't have the right to do that.
Executive recklessness.
Oh, that's what the term is.
Executive
That's a legal term,
yes.
Executive recklessness.
You can't just do that. Now, if you look at our constitution, in fact, the preamble said that we, the people of Nigeria, for ourselves made this constitution. And in that constitution, the constitution declared himself supreme over all persons. So regardless of your emotion as the president, you are to look at what the constitution provides for. And I will explain to you. The right to freedom of expression does not just guarantee you the right for me and you to speak. It also gives us that right to express ourselves by any means. If you look at Article 19 of United Nations Declaration of Human Rights, the Charter of United Nations, and even the Banjul, that's the African Charter, you will see that it gives us that right to express ourselves. And you cannot express yourself if you don't have the means to express yourself. Twitter has, as I understand it, of about 40 million users who expresses themselves through the means of Twitter. And this expression is tied to the constitutional provision of rights to freedom of expression. If you examine the constitutional provision or the rights in constitutional provision, you will agree with me that there are two circumstances where the right can be departed from. First is when there is a law made to curtail those fundamental rights. And secondly, when there is court order. What should the president or the presidency or the executive, what are they supposed to have done? They should have, in this circumstance, promulgated a law if they feel that people are now expressing themselves beyond what is allowed. And I still say today we have laws that even, criminalize and even punish people that, uses languages or defames or slander people. We have laws in Nigeria today. Or you approach the courts. I was having a conversation with a friend. How can you approach court that Twitter is not in Nigeria? I said, okay, I will explain to you. First and foremost, the reason given by the minister is that Twitter existence threatens our corporate. Twitter now threatens our corporate existence.
Yes.
And I know where they were coming from. I understand they were coming from the, because of Asari Dokuba versus FRN.
Yes.
Where the court say that, fundamental rights can take the back seats for the issue of national security. However, who determines what is national security? Who determines the executive, what is affecting our collective existence? Is it the president? Of course not. Because the moment he does that, he has become a judge in his own matter. So what is the appropriate procedure? The appropriate procedure is that the president ought to approach a court because your past is subject to checks and balances. The Attorney General of the Federation should have approached the court by expert application to present before a judge. And if you look at section 190 and 191 of the Evidence Act, allows him to present those facts of national security or things that affect our corporate existence before a judge alone in chamber. The law has procedure.
So it's even giving them something like a very good one to do what they want to do.
Definitely.
It's not even a very rigid process.
At all. You go to the court under section, by the evidence act under section 190 and 191, you present your fact before the judge alone in chamber, showing the reasons why we need to limit the right to freedom of expression using the means of Twitter. The judge will examine those facts and then give an interim injunction.
And it stands.
And that interim injunction should now be taken to these network providers. But in view of this circumstance, please restrict this. You don't just wake up. This is a constitutional democracy.
Now, you made mention of separating the office of the president from person of Muhammadu Buhari or any other person that is the president.
Yes.
Suppose maybe, let's say, the executive arm or the president have an official Twitter account. And through that official one, this statement was issued and Twitter removed them. Does the office of the president, now the presidency, can they also put a suspension to Twitter users in Nigeria?
Okay, I will answer you by saying, before somebody comes into your house, he has to knock, right?
That's right.
And you open the door.
Yes.
And the person walks in.
Yes.
I had mentioned earlier that Twitter is not the official means of communication. It is a social media that is regulated by policy.
Which policy now?
The policy that you don't use the office, you don't use their platform to threaten people.
Okay, they have their own policy.
They have their policy, yes. That you don't use it to threaten, harass. They have standard policy that they've put in place. Now, assuming that tweet came from let's say, the office of the president of Nigeria, that same tweet will still be subject or subjected to the policies of Twitter. Because it has its own rules and regulation. It's not your creation. And of course, if that has happened, we would have expected Twitter to be more diplomatic, to follow a diplomatic means of going to the Minister of Information or to the special advisor to the president to escalate that. That could have been a diplomatic channel anyway. But when it comes to the person, I know people have said is one of them, but I said there is a distinction between the person of the president and the office of the president. But when it comes to the person of the president, it is no longer your emotion that matters. It is now what the law prescribes. And how do I go about it in accordance with the law?
Now, do you think that this contravenes any section in the Constitution or any other law, this ban of Twitter in Nigeria?
In fact, it contravenes every known reasonable law.
How do you say so?
You see, like I did mention earlier, right to freedom of expression does not exist in vacuum.
And of course, it's in the Constitution, of course.
Oh, definitely. And that right means that you can express yourself, provided you don't go outside the law. And being a constitutional democracy, it is expected that if the president will take an action or act that will curtail that right of expression using the means of Twitter, that exercise has to be in accordance with the law. And like I speak today, there is no law saying a particular set of medium should be used to express oneself, while a particular set of medium should not be used to express itself. And I said, in the absence of a legislation that directs the president on what to do in a situation like this, there is another leeway. If indeed you must curtail that fundamental right to freedom of expression, that leeway is that you need an order of courts to be able to tell people you are not to use this for now. And I tell you, the essence of it is the essence of check and balances. Because the president sitting in the office cannot determine how I should be able to express myself. The moment you do that, you're already infringing my right to freedom of expression. Remember, the social contract theory is of the view that, see, the power he's exercising today was donated to him by me and you. And the essence of that power is not that he should use that power to the detriment of the people. 40 million Nigerians, just by one instruction, because you were affected, then the entire 40 million should walk away. I mean, I see it as very, very discouraging, you know. And in the eyes of international communities, you can imagine how they will be looking at Nigeria. And this again justifies why Twitter refused to cite their headquarters in Nigeria.
I was even surprised when I heard it that it's no more. They took it to Ghana.
It's in Ghana, even though in Africa they have more users in Nigeria than anywhere you can talk about. But yet they refuse to cite their head office.
Now, in few minutes, what do you think is the way forward? Because let it not be as if we have lamented so long. What do you think can be a way forward?
Now, there are two dimensions to this. The first is, if you look at the reasons given by the presidency or the Minister of Information for restricting access to Twitter, he said people had used the platform of Twitter to tweet, and Twitter did not take any appropriate action to stop that. So why should Twitter treat the president differently? To an extent, I tend to agree with them. Twitter needs to be proactive. So, in as much as you want to protect your policy and make sure your policy works out as it should, that protection should go across boards. So if anybody tweets anything that you think is against your policy, then you must take an action to remove it immediately. I feel, assuming they are removing tweets, of other persons that contravene their policy, maybe this action taken by the presidency couldn't have been. Then the president needs to understand that this is a constitutional democracy. And whatever thing you must do.
But I think that they did it also in Trump. They removed the Trump owner.
Oh, definitely.
Exactly. So your president shouldn't have been so furious about that. And maybe that was why even Trump was even supporting what Nigeria did.
And what he couldn't do. Because he understands.
Yes, he couldn't do it.
That there is a system. He cannot unilaterally deny people access to a means of expression. So why didn't he, as the president of the United States of America, do that?
So the way forward is for Twitter to be proactive.
They should be proactive. And the president should also understand that this is a constitutional democracy. And again, he should, as a matter of necessity, respect the right of people to expression.
It should be as a matter of necessity, respect the rights of people and citizens, because it's the beauty of democracy. We want to appreciate you, sir, for coming. We thank you, and when next we call you, I believe you also oblige us.
Thank you
very much.
Thank you so much.
It remains a statement of fact that Twitter is an essential online network platform that is used all over the world. It has also been confirmed that its use in any country has a way of boosting the economy of that country. That is why many things seem to be wrong on this ban or suspension on Twitter in Nigeria, because it has affected the economy negatively and has created huge amount of unemployment. Reports also has it that some online businesses have been shut down. If an action of a sovereign state can affect her citizens negatively in this manner, is it not high time the government began to quickly seek possible solutions in order to remedy this situation? I think the time for government to act is now. Are you really with me on this? Well, I leave you with your own thoughts. This is where we draw the curtain on today's episode of Justify Nigeria. Join us same time, same station, another fresh episode of the program. Until then, it's Ano Zechinum, so saying bye for now. When one is horrible, it means that there is nothing that is objectively good and progressive that will come out of such individual.
If you have been convicted of an offense before and you have been pardoned, and anybody is trying to bring that up against you and calling you a convict, you have the power to sue that person for defamation.
Justice must not only be done, but it must be seen by all to have been manifestly done.